McCuistion, for over 28 years talking about things that matter with people who care. Production of McCuistion is made possible in part by individual viewers, supporters of the Foundation for Responsible Television, the University of Texas at Dallas, creating the future.
And does it seem to you as if every young person over 3 years old has a smartphone? Is that really smart? And is it really smart to allow them in school and in particular in the classroom? We'll answer these questions and also whether smartphones negatively affect a young person's brain. Here to help me communicate is my co-host, Jim Falk, CEO and President of the World Affairs Council of Dallas-Fort Worth.
Great to see you again, and I hope you're not going to take my phone away.
I'm not. I hope you turn it on stun for this program, however.
Stun?
Because because we have some really important people sitting over here. And on my left is Basma Yacoub. She's the Director of International Programs at a leading charter school. She's an experienced teacher in K-12 and has taught one-to-one middle school, which I'm going to ask you about in a bit, and flipped her classroom. You don't look that strong, Basma, but if you flipped your classroom, you say so, I believe you. We'll talk about that as well. Next to you is Leigh Richardson. She's a licensed professional counselor and the clinical director of the Brain Performance Center, which is dedicated to improving all aspects of brain and mental health. So Leigh, welcome to the program as well.
Thank you.
So what is the impact of these smartphones on brain performance and brain health?
Well, it's a lot more, when you ask that question, people say, oh, I know, that blue light. That blue light's not healthy. It's a lot more than that blue light. Think about it. You take out that smartphone and you like it. You're going to check your social media. You're going to check your emails. You're going to maybe even, who knows, check your bank account. So you start checking that social media and you like that. And the brain, whenever you do something that you really like, the brain starts kicking out this dopamine. And dopamine is a really feel-good neurotransmitter. And the more you do it, the more dopamine you kick out. Now, the problem with that is you've got these little nerve cells in the brain, and they get confused. It starts off, I like this, I like doing this. And they get a little confused with all that dopamine. I want this, I want to do this. And then it goes to, I need this, I really, really need this. So whether it's a smartphone or an iPad, the way that we look at addiction today is really different than it was 10 years ago when it was all drugs or alcohol.
Now we're going to be focusing mostly on kids today, but does that affect me too when I use the smartphone?
Absolutely.
My brain is being rewired?
Well, your brain may not have as much neuroplasticity as a kid's does.
That's a very, very nice
Was that
way
diplomatic?
To put that. That was very diplomatic.
But it can still impact it.
Yeah, and I guess it probably maybe, some people say there's some positive impact as well because we get to know things we didn't know quicker. Is that true?
Well, absolutely. That's good, but that's bad. We live in an instantaneous world now. I want it, and I can get it. I can get it on my smartphone. But I think there's a dependency that I see occurring. When I have clients come in my office and, Miss Leigh, you have a cell phone charger? No. And I see a total meltdown. That's a red flag.
So do you have clients come in to be treated for addiction to technology?
Well, they come in for anxiety or depression because there's a lot of co-occurring things going on. But those with anxiety, the first thing they ask for is that cell phone charger. FOMO, fear of missing out.
Wow. Now, Basma, you've been in the classroom, you're very young, I don't know how long. You've been in the classroom, your experience, let's put it that way, even though you don't look at. So your students use some sort of technology. Tell us what they use and tell us what this one-to-one, is that how you say it? Tell us what that means.
So one-to-one means that for each student there's a piece of technology, whether it be a Chromebook or an iPad or a cell phone. I've used one-to-one in my classroom, one-to-one technology in my classroom in various ways. And what I've seen is that it enhances learning. So it gives them opportunities that I wouldn't be able to give to them in my traditional classroom setting.
Is this your own decision, or is this across your school?
I've had it done with my whole school, but I've also had my personal classroom use personal devices so that students can enhance their learning.
Would you say enhance their learning? Does that mean then that the students are not allowed to check their social media during the class?
That's correct. It's I have strict policies in my classroom for using technology.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. How do you
sure.
monitor that?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
well-
Okay. No, Miss Basma. No. I'm following you. I'm taking some notes. I'm looking at what you sent me last night, but don't look over my shoulder.
Well, I'll tell you that my first year, cell phones were not allowed in my classroom. My first year teaching back in 2007, cell phones were not allowed in my classroom.
What grade are you teaching? Or were teaching at that
I
point?
was teaching high school at that time, so I was teaching 10th graders. And so they were working on, my students were working on an activity in groups. And so they were discussing something, and I was walking around making sure that students were on task, and I saw a student with an earpiece on, and it looked like he was having a discussion, but I realized he was just having a conversation on the phone. So from that day, I learned that it's very important to closely monitor your students, and even if they're not allowed to use them, they can.
Well, you don't know this, but I teach in the classroom as well on the college level.
Yes.
I don't let them use an iPad, smartphone, laptop, any of that stuff in the classroom. What do you think about that? Is that pretty tough on my part or no?
I think if they're not going to use the technology for an educational purpose, then they shouldn't be using it. But if there's an educational purpose for them using it.
But they always say, I'm using it for an educational purpose. Professor McCuistion, I'm taking notes on my iPad. And I go, that's interesting when it looks as if you're playing a computer game on there. I am shocked about how this works. Do you believe this? And now, obviously, these are not students that came from your classroom. They would have been better behaved, right? But it's the guys who are usually the worst, but not always. Mm-hmm. And so the guys, so they have a desk like this and a desk like this, and they're sitting there, and I can always tell when they're actually doing something with their phone. You know, so they're always looking down at the time as opposed to looking at me.
Right.
Now, do people cheat with using these devices, Leigh? Possibly?
Well, when you get very dependent upon that device as your major lifeline, you know, that's where your mom texts you, be outside, I'm coming to get you. That's where you can look at your social media and see how many likes you got. It's really hard, you know, to put it down. How many adults can put their phone down? Go into a restaurant and look around. You'll see a table of 4. Will you see anybody talking to anybody?
How many couples are doing that on their anniversary night?
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to tell you a funny story because I don't think you know this story, and I know you ladies don't. Think about this, what you were saying, and I ask you folks in the audience, think about this too. We often walk into a restaurant, particularly if it's a cafeteria, let's say, and there's typically an older couple sitting by themselves. You got this? Older couple sitting by themselves. How often have we seen an older couple sitting by themselves and who never have a word of conversation during the whole meal? You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. That's the way it's done, older couples, you know, like you and your wife. No, hold on.
Thank you so much.
Now,
you still got more of the story?
Oh, no.
All right.
So this is today's version. So I have this cartoon, and this young couple is in, they're sitting at a table and they're texting each other back and forth. And there's another young couple at another table over here, and this couple's texting each other back and forth. You said, you see that young couple over there? They haven't texted each other one time during dinner. Something is wrong. So that's today's world, you know?
But there must be a point in time and an age or a certain period of hours. I mean, do you recommend that you can, to parents, let your children use a smartphone at a certain age for X number of hours?
I think that the smartphone should be used when there's a need for it. In some families, if you have a single mom or a single dad, that child may need that phone as a way of communication.
But it
you
doesn't
don't
have
need
to be a
smartphone.
right?
Exactly. We're talking the same language here. You can get a phone that is nothing more than a phone for $2.99 online, but there's a long waiting list for those. I mean, people are paying thousands of dollars to go on vacations where you do not have access to a smartphone. Does that suggest it's a problem?
Yeah.
Let's go back to those phones that you can buy. And I didn't realize there was a waiting list. But you can actually program them, can't you, so that it will only receive certain numbers and you can only dial certain numbers as well.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, is taking control. Don't let that device control you.
Yeah.
But you know, Dennis, how we hear so often about helicopter parents.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, in a sense, the phone has become a lifeline, hasn't it?
Well, and I'm going to introduce this other teacher over here and her student, because there's a big article in the Wall Street Journal, Kirsten. So Kirsten, this is Kirsten Chapman, if you'll stand up. She's an 8th grade English language arts teacher and the mother of 2 teenagers who love their smartphones. That's the problem, is the mother of 2 teenagers. But there was a big article in the Wall Street Journal recently that a lot of the students using their phone, they would wish their parents quit texting them all times during the day. Is that a problem?
It is. It's a problem probably 3 days out of the 5 that I work. I'm teaching a lesson and the kid is distracted and I'm looking over and I'm wondering why he's not looking at me or she, and they're hearing their phone vibrating. They might be hearing a beep or something, and it's something that they're desperately trying to solve at that moment, because a good part of the time it is the parents that are trying to communicate with them in the middle of the school day.
Yeah, I knew it was always a parent problem, without a doubt.
Yes.
Now, you were talking about this one-to-one with Basma. You use a one-to-one as well?
We do. I'm in Coppell ISD and I teach 8th grade, and we are one-to-one. I'm real strict about the phones as well, but they do have access in all of their classes to use the iPads for learning.
Okay, good. Now,
So-
you have a student with you.
I do.
Ask her to stand up here, and
Sure.
Kara, if you can get the microphone over to her. Tell us your name, and then tell us how addicted or not you are to your smartphone.
Well, my name is Vaishnavi, and I'm necessarily not as addicted to my smartphone as I've seen other of my friends, because I don't use my smartphone on every hour or every minute. I don't want to be on my phone every minute, because I'm a very social person and I'd rather be talking to my friends and my family. So yeah.
So how much time do you spend on your smartphone, do you think?
On a daily basis, probably 45 minutes.
And at what age did you get a smartphone?
Well, it was a surprise for me to get a smartphone. I got it in 5th grade, December, for Christmas. My cousins had bought it for me, but I never used it as much as I use it today, because it wasn't necessary for me back then. But now I need to contact my parents more than I did back then.
So you use it primarily to contact your parents, not social media, not your classmates?
I do use it for social media and I do use it to contact my classmates, but the main reason I use my phone is to contact my parents.
All right, so you mentioned that other students use it a lot more, and do you see a problem with some of them at all?
Well, yes, I do, because using a smartphone too much is really bad for the brain and really bad for your whole life. So if you use a smartphone, it can mess up your whole daily routine. And because I've seen kids who don't do their homework because they're on their smartphones, and the next day they get in trouble with their teacher, and they don't know what to say because they didn't do their homework. So.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I saw you going yes when she said about brain. Talk to us.
Well, when she said that, I thought the main thing that we don't realize is, do you know that many kids sleep with their phone underneath their pillow? And they wake up in the middle of the night. If they hear that bzzz, they automatically wake up. And they have to respond to that text.
Or they may not sleep as well because they're anticipating and hoping that they're going to get that.
And that impacts their school performance. And that's what I keyed off of, is, that impacts your ability. If you think you can stay up all night long and go off of 4 or 5 hours of sleep and go in and perform at the level that you need to in the classroom, that's going to be extremely difficult.
Another concern I have is I think about some of my friends who have young children, and they will create really a study room to watch what their children are getting access to on a computer. So when they're walking around on their high school campus, they really can be actually prey for predators that are trolling to reach out to them.
Well, you get concerned for obvious reasons. You have grandchildren.
I do.
So give us some idea about how that works, Mr. Grandparent.
Well, I spoke to, in fact, my daughter-in-law just a few days ago, knowing that we were going to be having this great discussion with all of you. And she said that already with our 8-year-old, who's just approaching 9 years old, she started asking about a smartphone. And they have been absolutely very, very forceful that their children are not going to have smartphones until a certain age. And she told me about a unique organization.
Yeah, we're going to look at that. Let's put that graphic up right now while we're looking at, while you're talking about that unique organization there.
And there it is, and it's called Wait Until 8th. And for us Texans viewers, it's based in Austin, and it was founded by a few mothers who were really concerned about this. And, peer pressure is such an issue with young children, right? And so what they've done is they basically ask parents to form a group of, say, 10 to 12 people, and they try to expand this group, and then it becomes public, and you actually take an oath. You make a commitment, and you make a commitment that you're not going to get cell phones for your children, smartphones, until they're in the 8th grade. And it's been very effective.
I think that's amazing, because what they're doing is they're creating a sense of community around not using those smartphones.
And then no child feels that they've been left out or trying to keep up with others, and it works.
Yeah, and Basma, she was talking about, she's very social, so she doesn't use her phone as much. Do you notice in the classroom that people don't talk to each other as much as they used to, as much as maybe when you were in school? Because it seemed like we were always out in groups talking and all that, and now doesn't it seem like it's always this, or am I missing something here?
Well, in my classroom, we do a lot of talking, a lot of collaborative work. So they're used to talking in my classroom. So I see that still happening, even though we use technology from time to time.
All right, so let's talk about the flipped classroom. I made fun of it, but I do know what a flipped classroom is because I use that in mine as well. So tell us how you use technology to enable you to use a flipped classroom and what the benefits are of a flipped classroom.
Okay, so I record myself teaching a lesson sometimes and have my students watch it the night before, and when they come into class they already have that background knowledge that they need for the lesson. So I can go ahead and go to the activity or go have a discussion where my students will already have background knowledge that they need, instead of me spending 10 minutes on a mini lesson. So I can use my classroom time more effectively. And it could be very beneficial to students that may be struggling. I have had like ESL students that watch my video and stop, look up a word, a piece of vocabulary, a vocabulary word they might not know, and then press play again and watch the rest of the video, or watch it over and over. And I've had students say this was really helpful to them, because when I give my lecture in class, they might miss out on some things, but being able to watch it over and over, they're able to really get it.
Yeah, that's really a great way to do it, because as I'm fairly sure that viewer knows, there's a whole school of thought in education that we need to be sort of interactive in the classroom, need to be talking to each other, as you said, and questions, and then having them work in groups and all that. But if they don't have that basic underlying knowledge, and you're using the technology to give them that knowledge out of class, so they do it out of class, then you can flip your classroom so you're not just lecturing in the classroom. Is that basically why you call it a flipped classroom?
Yes.
I want to go back to the phones just for a minute as well, too, because are you not seeing that having the latest phone is almost a status symbol, like having the latest sneaker? And
Yes.
does that create a problem?
It could, but this is a issue we've been dealing with since the beginning of time. There's always been a item that gets students excited.
What do you think about that?
Well, I do think a phone is prestigious, and think about the people you see walking down the streets with their AirPods in. They're walking and it's like, do not talk to me. I am busy.
I'm cool.
I'm cool. I'm on my phone. When you see athletes in the airport, it's kind of a sign of, do not talk to me. So I do think there's some prestige associated with the phone and how you use the phone.
You mentioned earlier something about a red flag. Are there red flags that person, that parent or grandparent watching this program should pay attention to?
Absolutely. If you see, let's say you have your aunt come over, and if you see your child would rather go up to their room with their phone than sit down and talk to their family, that's a red flag. If you take that phone away, if you say, you know what, tech time out, we're all going to put our phone in the basket on the kitchen counter while we have dinner, and they have a meltdown, that's a red flag. If you see that child so attached to that phone that when it's not there, it's just like, we'll be looking for our keys. Where are the keys? And sometimes I do get that little going, but if they get that going when they don't know where their phone is or it's not charged, those are all red flags.
We talked about this wait until 8th, but in your view, what is the appropriate time for a child to have a smartphone? Smartphone, not just a regular phone.
A smartphone, a child they need to have a need for that phone. And it needs to be supervised. It should not be, I see kids come in my office, families will come in for a consultation, and maybe it's about the 7th or the 8th grader. Well, there's a 3 or 4-year-old. They'll hand that 3 or 4-year-old the phone. That kid can do things with that phone. I'm like, show me how you did that. I mean, they'll pull up YouTube videos. I don't know how to do that. So I think, that it has to be supervised.
But in a sense, that's a positive development.
It is. It is a positive because they're accessing information and they're learning, oh my gosh, I can experience a lot of things.
Here's the only reason it's positive is because if you have grandkids around, they can show you what to do. That's the only reason it's positive. Let's be clear. Now, we have, I think, we make fun of kids and kids have these problems, those problems. In my opinion, it's always a parenting problem. What kind of boundaries should a parent be setting for that child, young adult, whichever, as it relates to smartphones?
Well, I think here's the hard part. That parent needs to be a role model. They need to model the behavior that is appropriate. And if they text their child, come down, dinner's ready, or they come down and the child is sitting there waiting, Mom, I have a question. Okay, and they're on their phone, that's the problem. It all starts, you've got to be a role model.
Well, I think you're touching on a very important point, and you're seeing more and more literature about this, about how we work often 24/7, and you have to set some type of boundaries so that you can really have a different family style and so forth. Again, bragging about my family, they have an ironclad rule that they do not have a phone at the table when they're having their evening dinner.
That is a great ironclad rule and a great boundary.
I wish I had it at my house.
I wish you did too. So I'm going to give Kirsten one last chance over here. So Kirsten, stand up again. You've heard what these folks had to say and how they use things. Anything you'd like to add that might help that viewer?
As far as the classroom goes, I wanted to just say that kids are going to check their phones. They're going to be active on social media. I don't know if you're familiar with Snapchat, but they have this thing called streaks. And if they have hundreds of thousands of streaks, the more popular they are, the more excited they are about that. So we have to find a place in our classroom or at sometime during the school day to give them access to do those things. So for me, it's usually before the classroom instruction begins. Mm-hmm. I give them a couple minutes, check your phone, do whatever it is you need to do, check your Instagram, check your Snapchat, and then put it away and we'll get started. So I think it keeps kids from being sneaky and making those negative choices if they have that opportunity.
Well, that's a good point, whether it's before class or what I tell my students is that if there's something that comes up during class and you're having an addiction, what do you call it when they have a fit? When they just have to have it, what do you call that?
The shakes.
I call that
the
shakes, an OCD moment.
That's right. That's right. When you have the shakes and you just have to do something with your phone, pick it up, go outside the classroom and do what you need to do, and then come back because you'll be relaxed then, not anxious and all that. But we have breaks if we have a long class and all that. But you're right. We need to make time for that. But the time, in my opinion, is not in the classroom, Basma. So there you are. Kirsten, thank you very much for your help.
But you know, Dennis, I think Basma said something really interesting because she said the students are measuring themselves by how many, what did you call it?
They have this thing called Snapchat streaks. And I'm not entirely sure what that is.
So it's like likes on Facebook, I presume.
Something like that.
So, you know, really, what is the benefit of that?
I don't see that as a benefit. I think your social, when you are more concerned about how many likes that you get, she got 10. I only got 6. She's a lot better than I am. Where's
All
the
I
benefit
know is
in
that my dog gets many more likes than I do.
Well, let me just say, having met your dog, I can understand why.
Thank you so much.
That works out really well. Okay, we just have a couple minutes left. Leigh, give us some other thoughts that you'd like to leave that viewer with.
I think that we all need to understand how important it is that we do draw some boundaries, because if you're using that phone as a way to escape from reality or stress, and you're using that and you're not able to stay present and stay in the moment, we've all got to learn how to connect in the real world. And the first thing that we do, included when you get stressed out, what do you pick up? Your phone, you know. And I think that we need to understand, is it hard to change the way we use our phone? Yes. Can we? Absolutely. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah, must we? And yet you don't want to get rid of its teaching ability, right?
Yes, it's a great tool to enhance learning in the classroom, and using the flipped classroom model or using apps to further their learning is very important. So let's not get rid of technology altogether. If we need to use cell phones for that, then let's use them.
And you know, you can look at your cell phone now and every week or every day see just how much screen time you've had, and that's probably a good way to sort of self-regulate our behavior.
Yeah, and how many steps you've taken. And maybe you should take how many steps you've taken without looking at your smartphone at the same time. I don't know. Anyway, thank you too, and thank you too for being here as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, we know that it's hard to ration the use of your young person's phone, but as you've seen, it's in their best interest as well as yours. Now, you and I both know that the use of these devices is only going to increase, so we better get smart ourselves. Join us on Twitter using your smartphone. Check McCuistionTV.com using your smartphone, and keep inviting us into your smartphone as we always talk about things that matter with people who care.
For more information, call 214-750-5157 or email Nikki N at nikkimcquistion.com. Visit our website at www.mcquistiontv.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at www.twitter.com/McQuistionTV or download McQuistion TV video podcast on iTunes.